So the lovely people who head up Sonic Temple were actually kind enough to offer me and the other guys from the Rock Coliseum the chance to attend this year's festival, May 17th through the 19th at Mapfre Stadium in Columbus, Ohio. Tickets and VIP packages are still available, so use the special link in the video description to snag your passes today. They told me to do a few short ads in the meantime, though, but they didn't give me a ton of guidelines or anything, so here's my best attempt to list off every band in the Sonic Temple lineup in one single breath. Ready? Foo Fighters, System of a Down, Disturbed, Bring Me the Horizon, Ghost, Papa Roach, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, Chevelle, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, The Cult, In This Moment, The Hives, Gojira, The Distillers, Meshuggah, Action Bronson, The Struts, Refused, Killswitch Engage, Parkway Drive, Black Label Society, Beartooth, Scars on Broadway, Architects, Tom Morello, Avatar, Pussy Riot, Bad Wolves, Fever 333, The Mark Lanigan Band, The Interrupters, Bad Flower, The Glorious Sons, Issues, Youngblood, that's pronounced horror, Black Pistol Fire, Scarlord, Zeal and Ardor, Basement, Black Dahlia Murder, Don Bracco, Wage War, Hands Like Houses While She Sleeps, Payout Royale Movements, Amigo the Devil, The Blot in You, Boston Manor, Counterfeit, D-Mob Happy, Teenage Wrist, Pretty Vicious, Black Coffee, Shapes, Dirty Honey, No One Cares, The Jacks, Andrew Dice Clay, Henry Rollins, Pauly Goddamn Shore, and even more. Oh my God. Oh, that hurt. Oh, I'm gonna die. Oh. See you at Sonic Temple, people. Check out the link in the description to get your passes. Oh my. Ow. Hey, PUP is back. Alright, I was super psyched to be hearing from these guys again, as was, I think, fucking everybody. Like, this is easily my most requested album of the year, apart from, you know, the ones those other guys did. But I can't say I blame ya. PUP is out here doing some really killer stuff in the indie punk circuit, and I knew their follow-up to 2016's The Dream Is Over was gonna be something to keep my eye on. Well, it's here, finally, so how does it stack up? Yeah, it's pretty great. What'd you think I was gonna do? Pull a switcheroo on you here? Nah. This is pretty legit. You gotta give it up to Stephen Babcock and the boys. They know how to write one hell of a riff, put a set of lyrics next to it that'll just bleed your heart dry, and leave you begging for more by the end of it all. Even on an album like this, which, well, let me put it this way. That title ain't exactly subtle. This record has a touch of the dark side to it. Now, granted, PUP always did have kind of a darker edge to them, if you want to put it that way. I mean, they were never over here singing Sunshine and Lollipops or whatever, but even by their own blissfully negative standards, this album, it's borderline nihilistic. It never lets up, too. From front to back, songs like the self-titled opener, Kids, See You at Your Funeral, Sibling Rivalry, Full-Blown Meltdown. Man, this fucker is just bleak. Hell, even reading interviews and stuff leading up to this record's release, you can just tell that Stefan is pulling from a lot of the darker places in his life, you know? But the thing is, though, it's a bleak, almost blighted album, but at the same time, it also never feels melodramatic or whiny like some darker records can. At least not to me, it doesn't. I don't know, I could see this maybe being a little much for some people, but the anger, the sadness, the hopelessness of this album, none of it ever comes off as disingenuous. If anything, it's a darkness that feels very earnest and quite relatable at the moment. Like the band are having this conversation with you next to the bar as they pour another shot of whiskey into their throats. It's negative, but hey man, we live in negative times, and listening to this record just kind of makes you nod along and go, oh my god, I know, right? Jesus! It's not a happy record, even by those of you who know not to expect a happy record out of PUP, but god damn it, the music is still catchy, it has hooks for days, and it has more of an indie slanted focus this time, while still maintaining enough rawness and rowdiness to keep it engaging. There wasn't like too many full-blown DVP moments on this album, just as like a fair warning to some of you out there, but to me at least, that was never like a dissuading factor. The music is great, the lyrics, if not a bit on the holy fucking shit, fuck everything side of things, are still poignant and pertinent, and yeah, this wasn't quite the curveball I was necessarily expecting out of PUP, but I'll be damned if they didn't do a good job with it. If you just need to scream fuck it into a pillow for like 30 to 40 minutes, this album will do you good. Morbid Stuff gets 4.5 fuck pillows out of 5. Yeah, I had a feeling it would be only a matter of time before we got to Devin Townsend. What took so long? Well, part of the problem is definitely that Heavy Devi is a prolific motherfucker. How in the sweet mother of fuck am I supposed to keep up with all this? Seriously, Townsend really is the mad scientist of progressive metal, and on his latest solo project, Empath, that trademark madness really does shine through. Now, I have to admit I'm kind of a casual when it comes to Devin's work overall. I like the stuff he did with Strapping Young Lad, of course. I really liked the Ziltoid albums, and I liked the handful of records he's done most recently. But I am by no means an expert. I couldn't even begin to tell you the little minutiae that separate one of his projects from his other. I mean, not coming with an encyclopedic knowledge of the dude, the best I can do for you here is just review the album I have in front of me. And what do I have in front of me? Well, Devin Townsend, that's what. Under the Wikipedia article for this album, there's a line under critical reception that states that this is the most Devin album Devin ever recorded. And honestly, I couldn't put it any better myself. Devin Townsend can just do a lot of stuff that nobody else could possibly get away with. Open the album with a song that features a bunch of kittens mewing? Devi can do it. Have a song that's basically just one weird-ass proto-Grimm's fairy tale? Devi can do it. Have Chad goat fucking Kroger
We make love to goats
on your album just because you can? Devi can do it. The thing that people really seem to love most about Devin is his crazily proficient playing and his insanely elaborate musical construction. Devin Townsend doesn't build walls of sound, he builds motherfucking skyscrapers. And you know what? If you're a fan of Devi, this has to be an Album of the Year candidate for you. Even as a casual Townsend fan, I gotta admit, there's a lot about this record I do enjoy. It truly is the most Devin album Devin's made to date. But speaking as a casual fan, that's both a good and a bad thing. While I do generally like this record, it does suffer from two major problems that Devin Townsend's work always seems to suffer from. And number one, this thing is way too goddamn long. It's just a crazy, overwhelming sound that he weaves on this record, which he usually does on all his records, but there's just so goddamn much of it to try and process and break down and take in. Like, oh my god, trying to sit through this album multiple times, while always fun at first, gets draggy as hell by minute 70. That's always been an issue with Dev, though. And number two, oh god, I'm totally gonna be that guy here. His production, it's too clean, it's too sterile, it lacks teeth or grit or identity. If you tried stepping on this album, you'd do a cartoon character slipping on a banana peel motion. That's how slick this record sounds. And it's part of the reason why Devin Townsend albums can feel like such long sits. The sound is so dense and so overwhelming and so just glitteringly smooth that you can barely even cut through it all. Stuff starts to bleed together and nothing has a really distinctive identity. I mean, I mentioned Chad Kroeger being on this record, and yeah, you'd think someone with a voice as horrible as his would stick out, but yeah, I've listened to this thing multiple times, and I can't even remember which song he features on. He was just drowned out in an ocean of overdubbed guitars, bass solos, choirs, organs, marimbas, steel drums, kitties. Chad Kroeger, like anything else that could potentially stick out on this album, just gets drowned out by all the other shit going on around it. And you know, if you did want to cover up the fact that you put Chad Kroeger on your album, that is a wonderful way to write him out of the mix. Touche, Devi. Touche. Look, like I said up top, if you're a heavy Devi faithful, this album's totally gonna be your jam. And even as a casual, I can admit it's got plenty of jammy moments on it. But Devin just hasn't fixed any of his trademark issues here, or done anything even really all that different. It just feels like a record for the fans and no one else. Not that there's anything even inherently wrong with that. I mean, Townsend has nothing left to prove to anyone. His legacy is beyond secure. But you know, Devin Townsend isn't necessarily gonna be for everyone on the best of times, and this is everything you love about Devi turned up to 10, and everything you hate about Devi turned up to 10. But either way, he's gotten away with another mad creation, so settle in, strap yourself to the chair, and enjoy the ride. Empath gets 4 kitties out of 5 Kroegers. Oh yeah, these guys. Remember them? Yeah, I don't blame you either. I can't help but feel like these dudes kinda slipped out of the general consciousness. If they were ever really prominently there to begin with, I remember hearing lots of hype about their debut, Language and Perspective, and to be honest, that record is still quite the lovely little jam. Fucking Cardiac Arrest is still a banger. But after that first year, I feel like I've barely heard even a peep out of them. I caught that second album back when it dropped, but I don't know, even after listening to it multiple times, I couldn't tell you a single damn thing about it, even if I tried. It sure as hell didn't have a Cardiac Arrest on it, and now with Mystic Truth, we're... who was I talking about again? If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. The hardest album to write a review for isn't the bad stuff, it's the mediocre, basically functional, inoffensive stuff. I mean, you know, guys like Chris Franzak and Ronnie Radke can release albums with their shitty bands about how they fuck all our mothers with their tiny useless cocks for 30 minutes. Those albums at least usually give us something to talk about. Namely, Ronnie Radke and his insecurities about his tiny useless cock. Bad Sons, I guess I can get away with the old Bullet Dodger. Fans will probably like it, but others not so much. I mean, that's basically what we got here. Can I just end it there? Oh, god damn it, I can never just end it there. I will admit the album did throw me for a loop with the opening track, Away We Go. Bad Sons have always been a bit of an electropop kind of thing, you know, heavy on the synths, but thankfully not in a Dragon You Can Imagine kind of way. And Away We Go actually has almost no keyboards on it or anything really like beat boopy. It's an electric guitar, a real piano. I mean, that admittedly turned my head at first, ditching the keyboards entirely to stake a bold new claim and prove that you don't need them to make good music. Regardless of whether an experiment like that worked or not, that would have at least been a point of interest to discuss. If the whole album sounded like this, that would have given me a talking point. But then the second track comes in and the keyboards completely come back on and the album never comes back to this again, and it's like, well, never mind. I think that may have been what they wanted to do at some point during the design document for this album. It feels like they wanted to try something new, but as the songs kept pouring in, they became more and more afraid to commit to it, and then everything just eventually folds back to the more comfort zone-y place that Bad Sons is used to staying in, and it just sandpapers away any potential originality tonality they may have been going for, which kind of sucks to see because they might have been onto something here. Away We Go is a nice proof of concept, but they didn't have the balls to properly execute anything else, so yeah, it's just kind of another Bad Sons record. It's not like that's terrible or anything. It's Bad Sons for sure. The synth work is still pleasant and well executed. The thickness of the bass grooves in a lot of these tracks do a lot to rub me up the right way. But apart from that initial flicker, that initial spark of creativity, this album, it's hard to say much more about it than it's another Bad Sons record. And by the end of it, I completely forgot what I was listening to. You can't really engage with it because nothing much is going on. Hell, Spotify even did that one thing where it starts playing a bunch of the band's back catalog after you finished listening to the album, and every time that happened, I couldn't even tell that the album had ended and that I was listening to new stuff. That's a pretty bad sign. I mean, if you're a diehard Bad Sons fan, maybe this thing will carry a bit more mileage for you. I'm sure Mark from Mad Sounds probably has more to say about this album than I do, but if you weren't already foaming at the mouth for this, don't worry about it. You didn't miss too much. Mystic Truth gets 3 looped playlists out of 5. Oh, don't even look at me like that. These are all Patreon requested albums. The guy paid and he wanted to see a review on this, and ho hum diddly dum, we're gonna do it. Pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice milk and settle in.
I want wintergreen! Unflavored for me.
You know, I have to admit though, in a weird way, I'm kind of the perfect guy to be talking about this album because A, I'm a rock critic, or at least I've done a good enough job bullshitting my way into making you all think I am. Haha. Though also by just random circumstance, I also happen to be one of the biggest OG Simpsons fans out there. For at least like the first 10 to 15 seasons at least. I mean, hey, I'm a fan, I'm not psychotic. So a Simpsons themed metal band? I guess I almost have to tackle this, don't I? Well, I guess I should have actually done that with their first album a couple of years back, but frankly, look, people, hard truth time. For as fun and as kitschy and as lol-worthy as the idea of Okilly Dokilly is, Okilly Dokilly as a band is just not very good. Like, they are not good. Very not good. Their last album had some of the shittiest production I'd ever heard from something that wasn't like on a cassette tape. And these guys, they just aren't the best musicians in the world. This is amateur hour shit. Even as a joke, I can't even begin to take this seriously. You're not supposed to take it seriously. Never, no, never. It's a joke band. Is it though? I mean, really, if they are a joke band, what is the joke? Seriously, think about it. What is the joke? Ned Flanders in a metal band? Oh, Ned Flanders isn't supposed to be in a metal band. That's not a joke. That's barely an undercase typed LOL reply to your mom's picture of a cat meme she posted to your wall on Facebook. That's just barely even humor. It's funny, like, the first time you hear about it, if only because the shock of, wow, this actually exists, kind of catches you off guard, but apart from that initial exposure, you never laugh about it again. This band feels specifically created just to get headlines on Metal Injection. Like, it's so fucking low effort. You're asking me to be impressed by this? No. Like, maybe if the lyrics were like in-character attempts at Ned Flanders trying to write death metal? See, there's a concept. The Simpsons themselves could make that into a bit. Even season 30 terrible Simpsons could do it. That's the thing, they don't even try that hard. There's almost no original material on display here. All of the lyrics to all their songs are just literal lines and references pulled verbatim out of Simpsons scripts. Like line for line. I would say maybe die-hard Simpsons fans could get something out of that, but speaking as a die-hard Simpsons fan, one so die-hard that I could probably tell you the exact episodes that they pulled all their references from, yeah, I'm still not impressed, dude. Drive Faster, I Can't, It's Only a Geo is really only funny in context, people. This isn't a band, it's a gimmick. This is a gimmick that pretty much lost all of its charm the minute I stopped reading about it on Metal Sucks. You know, there's a great litmus test I like to put a lot of gimmicky bands through, just to see if they really do stand out as musicians. Follow me along here. If you were to strip out all of the gimmicks from a band, like take out all of the comedy, all of the stupid shit they do, and just left the music itself to be judged, would the band still be good based solely on that clarifier? You'd be surprised how many gimmicky bands can still pass this test. The Proto Men would still rule even if they weren't singing about Mega Man. The Beats and Ninja Sex Party would still be pretty sick even if Danny wasn't singing about his penis. Okilly Dokilly? Without Ned Flanders, they barely even exist. I mean, they can't play, they can't write good hooks, their vocalist is nothing special. If you take all of the gimmicky shit away from this band, then they might very well be one of the worst bands I've ever reviewed, period. They're just not very good. And even the gimmick they do have does very little to save them here. This is a half joke stretched way, way, way beyond its breaking point. And a lot like The Simpsons itself, it's gone on for way, way, way longer than it had any right to, and should really just be put out of its misery at this point. Howdilly Twodilly gets 1.5 gingers out of 5. Yeah, how's that for a deep reference? Bitch, write a song about that. Ah, Whitechapel, one of the biggest names working in deathcore today. I haven't heard a ton from these guys, to be honest. I'm an old man! Get off my lawn! I mean, I've heard of them for sure, but I've only caught their stuff in passing on like random playlists here and there. I've always liked what I've heard, to be sure, but never quite enough to really go whole hog on them and want to dig super deep into their back catalog, which is why I was so glad to see them get Patreon requested, as that finally gave me the excuse to go all analytical and see what they were all about. It's about time, I guess. I figured I'd be in for a good ride with this one, but the Valley turned out to be a lot more than I bargained for, in a good way. This is a pretty safe call for the best album they've ever done. Granted, yeah, from my last paragraph there, I'm probably not the best guy to make that particular judgment call, but after listening to this record, I was kind of bowled over. I was impressed. I thought, holy shit, this is what I've been missing out on all this time? Holy shit, I gotta dig up that back catalog. And when I went back to some of their older stuff, you know, it's still good, but it's not like this good. This record is a masterstroke triumph for these guys. But, okay, what makes this album stand out from all the others then? That is certainly a good question. All of the trademark staples of Whitechapel are still here. Phil Bozeman's outstanding vocals are still front and center. Seriously, you just gotta give it up to this guy. His death growl is so guttural and intense. Even by deathcore standards, this dude can just garbage disposal with the best of them. His signature roar adds a lot to the album's mood, tone, and intensity. But at the same time, he's also got a very well-polished and defined, clean vocal style that he can switch to on a dime. The dude has an insane amount of range, control, and just overall raw talent as a vocalist. His performance is definitely one of the biggest draws here. And the instrumentation is also top-notch too. This is a 3-guitar band, and believe me, it shows. Ben Savage,
Zach Householder,
and Alex Wade are all complementing each other and trading riffs exquisitely, and combined with Gabe Crisp's thick and meaty low ending, as well as new drummer Ernie Iniguez's weighty and precise beats, you get a sound that continues to be as beefy and relentless as it ever was. This is still a Whitechapel album through and through.
But you could say that of most Whitechapel albums, Crash. What sets this one apart?
Well, but I think what helps push this one over the edge for me is the lyrics. This album is very feely. It's an emotional record, and, well, usually emotions and deathcore tend to not be the most comfortable fits unless those emotions are like, you know, rage, anger, insanity, or like yeah, that stuff. Believe me, this album still has plenty of that to go around, but the central theme connecting all of the songs here are experiences and metaphors pulled from Phil Bozeman's rough upbringing from his time in Appalachia, and based off of what I heard on this record, man, that upbringing must have been, like, super rough. God damn, dude. It does what I think Suicide Silence were trying to do on their last album.
failed completely on.
It's a deathcore album that'll make you feel it all the way through. It's loud and angry, but it's also very heavy on a distinct and intentional emotional level. It's a personal journey, an intense and vivid portrait of Bozeman's inner psyche, and a testament to all the demons he's had to conquer in his life and to the people that he's lost along the way. And man, you just feel every second of this album as you're listening to it. And that was the thing that set it apart from the other Whitechapel stuff I've heard over the years. This album shows the guys taking themselves a bit more seriously and trying to convey some very real and human themes and struggles. That's something that's kind of hard to do in deathcore. I really think this is a bold new step for the band. This is easily one of the best records they've ever made, easily one of the best metal records we've gotten so far this year, and Lord knows this is gonna be a strong contender for a lot of people's Album of the Year lists, and that sure is the case for me as well. God damn, this record just ruled. The Valley gets 5 Black Bears out of 5.
Super special thanks to Kyler Allround and Mo Moody.